This video is for the Apply Gestalt Principles assignment. Now, this assignment is very similar to the Apply Typography assignment, except for in the Apply Typography assignment, we were using one letter form. This letter form is to explore figure ground and other Gestalt principles, grouping, similarity, proximity from the chapter, and you're going to use multiple letter forms to create a composition. Now, this composition is supposed to be non-objective, so it's not about what the letter forms are, but it's the shapes that the letter forms create. Now, you're going to only be creating one 8x8 artboard in Illustrator, and you're going to combine those to create this composition. Now, the main thing that I'd say is don't overthink it. You can see these examples here. It's about finding how these forms might look good to create interesting shapes, to create balance, overall balance. And so the method that I would use, and we'll go through starting to build one, I'm going to create a new document, 8 inches by 8 inches. And I actually had 4 as my default, and you can either create a new document to get rid of them, but in this case I'll show you how to delete artboards. If I go over here to the artboard tool, I can select it and hit delete on the keyboard. That's one method. And then I hit V on the keyboard to go back to my regular selection tool. So now I have this artboard. And I'm going to start to add letter forms that I think are interesting, and the key is to choose letters that vary in weight and geometry and complexity. So I've got this lorem ipsum that I get from just clicking. I'm actually going to delete that, and I'm going to actually create a text area, which might give me several different letter forms. So here's a bunch of different letter forms. Make them a little bit larger. And then I'm going to choose a different typeface that might be a little bit more interesting. And we don't want to use typefaces that are more display typefaces. Like this one is a little bit too handwritten feeling. We want to have classic letter forms. So if you're not sure what those might be, look in the chapter on typography for some of those classic letter forms. So here's a few that I think might be interesting. Let's try a different typeface here. See if we can find a sans serif one that we like. We'll gotta have these highlighted. Let's see. Those slab serif ones are really interesting, so we're gonna use some of these. And we'll see if we can find a sans serif. So Helvetica works. So I'm just getting little tidbits of that text. And then I might want to look in here and see, you know, what do some numbers look like? What do some other glyphs look like? Some capital letters. Just so I can see what those might be. Then I'm going to look here and see some glyphs as well, some capital letters. We'll do the same here. I'm just holding Option to copy it. So now I've got some different letter forms to work with, and I'm going to save my document now. So we'll call it Gestalt Apply. And I'm going to start with some that I think might be interesting. I think this lowercase w. So I'm going to just copy just that letter form and move all of this out to my pasteboard, and I'm going to paste this here. And I'm going to make this larger, so I can either do Shift Command greater than, but that's going to take a long time, or I can hold the Shift key down and click and drag it larger. Now it becomes a little bit difficult to deal with as a shape, or as a letter rather than a shape. So if you see this bounding box here, and I can still change what this letter form is and highlight it. But what we're going to do is we're going to create outlines of this text, similar to the instructions from the last assignment. So I'm going to show you the difference here. I'm going to hold Shift and Option and make an exact copy of it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with this selected, go to Type, Create Outlines. And now if I have both of them selected, what you can see is this first one is still an editable letter or type that's on this path right here, on this baseline. Now if you look at this one, this has been converted to shape, so I can no longer change that into another letter form. It is points and lines, so if I got my direct selection tool, I could select one of these points and modify it. Now that's not what this part of the assignment is. I don't want you to be modifying the letter forms, but that's just to demonstrate the difference between these two. And now if you look at the bounding boxes only around the W instead of this large shape. So I'm just going to use this one that I've created outlines of. And so I'm going to start with the shape, maybe find another letter form. I'm just going to copy that, create outlines. I'm going to use the quick key, which is Shift Command O on your keyboard. And then I think I probably want some rounded shapes. So let's see, we've got this O here. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to create outlines. Now you can start to break these shapes apart as well. And so maybe I want to repeat this O shape, this circle in the center. And what I can do is if I triple click on this, and so it's drilled down, I can copy that, and then if I hit escape, it will get out of this drilled down or isolation mode and deselect, and then I can paste, and now I've got that exact same shape that I've broken apart, and then I can bring that in here to create a duplication of that. So you're more than welcome to break those shapes apart, but don't distort them. So I may want to look at what this one shape might be, a Shift Command O. And a lot of mine are feeling very similar in size and weight, so I may want to play with the scale of it. Maybe there's some repetition. And the thing that you want to do too is you want to look at some of the smaller details. So design these shapes. So if I look at the shape that's created here, this is kind of an awkward juncture. So maybe instead I bring these forms together to create a more solid fluid shape. Maybe I look at how this X interrelates with the top of the W, and instead of having it have this little jog here, I line those up. And so then I've got this other little shape here. So maybe what it is I take this whole thing and move it over. So think about, and I'm not super happy with that, so we're going to move it back. Maybe I end up adding another shape there, or maybe I rotate this X. So it's not about the fact that I can see the letter form. It's about the abstract nature of the shapes that the letter forms create. So I'm going to pick another shape here. We'll try the ampersand. And there's really not a right or wrong. It's about designing those relationships. So it's not just putting all those letter forms on the page, because that'll end up feeling like a jumbled mess of letter forms. So if I even look right here, you see that uncomfortable juncture. And so we want to think about how we can have that flow into those other shapes. But I'm not super happy with that, because here this becomes awkward. So maybe it needs to be a little bit larger. Maybe I want to think about flipping this. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to transform. I'm going to reflect that. So I'm going to preview it so I can see what happens. Make that backwards. and think about how that flows into these other forms. So that might be kind of interesting. So you see I'm trying to avoid those spaces there. Perhaps I need to have a form that is reversed out. So we're going to try this little carrot character. And maybe this character becomes white. And if you see, instead of having it end right here, maybe have it bleed off the letter form. Here it becomes a little bit awkward. We've got a little bit of an awkward juncture there. And then perhaps I'd prefer to have this reversed out white there to cover up this letter form. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it behind, which is Command B, or if you go to Edit, Paste in back, and then I can make this, I've got a second shape that's there that's black, and now I'm going to make this shape white. And I've got to make sure it fills that space so I don't get that little slice right there, or that slice there. So now I can cover that up. And what I want you to do is just kind of explore and experiment. I'm not super, I mean, this is not done. I probably want to spend another 30 or 40 minutes looking at the different patterns and things that I can create with these letter forms. So hopefully that'll give you an idea about how to begin this process. And then when you're complete, so let's say this one was completely done, which I would not say that this one's complete yet. But what you're going to do is you're going to create a clipping mask around your entire layout so that you don't have to see all of these shapes that are on the outside edge. So what you do is you create a shape that you want to be your clipping mask, and I'm getting my rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle around my entire layout here. Make sure it fits right to the edge, and then I'm going to click and drag across everything so it has all of the background shapes and my clipping mask shape selected, and go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And what that does is it uses that box I drew as a frame for these elements. I can still move them if I double click and drill down. I can move them within that frame, but then what it does is it crops out all those outside edges. And so once you've done that, go ahead and clean up your artboard, delete all the extra stuff that's there. And this is actually your pasteboard. I accidentally selected that. When in doubt, just undo Command Z on the keyboard. The more you use those keystrokes, the quicker your process is going to be. And so once it's done like that, save the AI file and then save the PDF, and the PDF is the one that you'll upload to Canvas. Let us know if you have any questions. Thanks.